sat at the table, munching on a piece of toast. It was pretty packed, and as usual, I was located near the end while the livelier conversations took place in the middle.
Morning. Slept well, I hope.
I did, surprisingly. You guys were pretty loud.
I think most of us retired around 1 a.m. The rowdier ones partied until 4. They'll have a hard time focusing in the cave today.
I can imagine.
Oh, speaking of cave, I finally will be working in the cave.
Nice! Were you waiting on your photograph?
Yup, some squares had to have their pictures retaken for better resolution. I may or may not work in the lab longer, though. Mr. Dupont will be hurrying to approve other students' pictures, too.
You could always ask Sherry. I think she has some authority here, too.
Sherry?
Sherry Keller, my professor.
Of course, Americans address teachers by their first name.
Is it different here?
Really different. In fact, I think some students mistook Sherry for your grandma. A professor overseeing their students in an elective? Unheard of. No one calls their teachers by their first name, and it's always strictly formal. If you want to talk to your professor, it's by appointment only.
Huh, I wonder how I'd do in an environment like that.
That's one thing I missed about New Zealand. It wasn't as rigid, and I'd gotten so used to it I practically had reverse culture shock coming back. There's a lot of things I miss in New Zealand.
Planning to return there one day?
You bet. Eventually I started saving up recently. Travel is darn expensive.
He laughed at my nod of agreement. The plane tickets here alone had cleaned up my savings. Everything else was from begging my parents to fund me for this trip. Checking the time, I chewed the last of my toast and gulped down the water. Alright, I'll see you at the cave then. Gulp. Come on. I wonder if you just can't spam a thing. You just run out of things to talk about. Oh! We succeeded! Or did I just have really bad dice rolls? Are you sure you'll be fine alone? Yeah, my parents got all concerned when they learned I no longer have a traveling partner. I was, strongly advised not to go off on my own since it's my first time being this far from home. Although I tried to be nonchalant about it, my sulkiness still surfaced. It's probably for the best. However, I'm sure you'll make friends and be able to venture out more. If you like, I can ask some of the students to see if they're interested in hosting you on the weekends. Me? I'd hate to impose. I know you're reluctant, but it would be nice to spend time with students outside the dig site. True, and see more of Belgium, too. It's a shame Paige couldn't make it. Where are you staying, anyway? Oh, at a colleague's. I've known him and his husband for years. I would bring you along, but it's a small house, and... She trailed off, and I nodded understandingly. I did not want to impose on her catch-up time with friends. Will the museum be completely locked up once Augustin leaves? Everything's safe for the back entrance, so you can access it. You can lock it from the inside at night. I imagine you'll be sleeping on the second floor. Yes, Augustin already set up an air mattress for me, and I moved some of my belongings. I think we've gone over everything then. There's leftovers in the fridge, and the Wi-Fi will remain on. I heard the laboratory door opening and closing, and Augustin flashed me a warm smile. All of the other students had left for home for the weekend, and it was just us three. Soon to be one, now that they were ready to depart.
Melissa, I assume Sherry has gone over everything.
Yes.
Wonderful. Although this is the first time in many years someone had remained here alone.
There was an ominous yet playful smirk, and I could not help but be wary. Why?
They are scared of the wrath of the Neanderthal whose bones we found.
I think I'll survive these 48 hours, Augustin.
What a brave girl. I hear it gets very eerie at night.
We exchanged goodbyes, and I heard the clicking of the front door being locked. Oh, Augustin. When it got very quiet, I pushed the thought of ghosts out of my head. I have a whole museum to myself. I bet not many people can say that.
Yeah.
Huh, the lights are on. Is someone here? What's all this? There were multiple wooden trays laid out on the center table. Each contained various rock samples along with paper slips labeled under each one. I approached and peered at the trays. Alright, this one is calcaire. Calcaire, deschiste, gray. Are they studying something, or would this be a part of another upcoming lecture? Okay, I did this before. Let's see what this one does. Curious, I picked up one of the shinier rocks and held it up under the ceiling lights. Ne pas toucher. Startled, I placed it back and glanced in the direction of the voice. Greeted with a disapproving frown, I tried to remedy my blunder. Je suis désolé. Je ne parle pas français. He looked at me in surprise before cracking a smile. Ah, you must be Sherry's student. He approached me casually and stood beside the table. Yes, I'm Melissa Flores, studying under Sherry. Pleased to meet you. I couldn't help but think I got off to a rocky start with him. He offered his left hand, and I accepted it with a firm shake. Hendrik Lukenhuis. I still don't know how to say that name. Lukenhuis, at your service. Hendrik, the geologist? Augustin's nephew? That's me. I was supposed to be here earlier, but was caught in a landslide of work back in Germany. Thought I'd catch up on a few things before Monday. He jutted his chin toward the samples. Sorry if I seemed aggregated. Some people don't put them back exactly where they should be, and it can be a mess. That's understandable. I'll be more mindful of that. Feel free to look around if you'd like. Merci. I picked a rock up, the one labeled calcaire. This material was everywhere in the cave. Limestone. I placed it down and examined one beside it labeled shale. Where did this collection come from? From one of the cabinets? It's mine, actually. Many of the rocks are ones I've dug up or personally found. I thought it'd be nice to have some examples to show the students here. Especially if they can't tell the difference between chert and shale yet. And what is the difference? He eagerly motioned me over to the tray, picked up a dark rock, and offered it to me. It felt grainy in my hand. First off, shale is composed of silt and clay, and it's a very soft rock. You've probably seen shale at road cuts or by the riverbanks. And this is chert. You can already note the waxy luster, and it's much harder than shale. I held the sample in my other hand. It also felt smoother than shale, almost like glass. This is what you need to keep an eye out for. A lot of stone tools were crafted out of chert. Fortunately, they tend to stand out like new when you uncover them. I can tell you've given this lecture many times. I'm guessing most students have never worked with rocks before? Yep, many are into art, computers, or music. I returned the rocks to their rightful spot. What were you doing in Germany? Pretty much what I do here. Supervise excavators, examine and compile soil samples, figure out the stratigraphy. I essentially chalk out a map of the cave to study the sediments and its history. That sounds difficult. You'd think sedimentary formations would be more straightforward. Older on the bottom, more recent on the top? You'd think, but geology is never that nice and easy. How to best describe this? Do you like cake? I want to pun, but I won't. I'll be good. I enjoy it sometimes. I do. Great, it'll make the analogy easier. I still don't know how to say this. What are the chances you've tried a Prinzregenten torte? Very low. Non-existent, in fact. Then, Black Forest? Less layers than I'd like, but you get the idea. Yes, I'm familiar with it. It'll work as long as I picture a multi-layered cake, right? Exactly. Cakes are like basic sediments. Consistent layers and patterns all around. Unlike cake, stratigraphy is a complex puzzle. Hendrik made multiple slices in the air with his hand, gradually lowering the elevation each time to emphasize the point. Layers are slanted due to how they were deposited, whether by alluvial means, weathering, freeze-thaw, gravity, cave-ins. The list goes on. And then, just as a sediment starts to settle, a river or flood may come in and wash the top surfaces away, leaving nothing or portions of the same layer in isolated pockets. badgers and other burrowing animals cut through layers, disrupting sediments further. Or something drastic could take place, like an earthquake, creating faults and misaligned sediments. Therefore, it's up to me to figure it out. I hope I didn't bore you. People have always said I'm married to my job. It wasn't boring at all, honest. If anything, it made me realize how much work goes into understanding the cave's history. It's definitely not easy, but I enjoy the challenge of piecing information together. Since I'm here, I'll be available if you have any other questions or inquiries.
He finished the last sentence like a well-rehearsed routine. How long have you worked here?
Me? Let me think. Nearly 4 years now? I helped my uncle during the summer, and then hopped to a few other caves depending on their excavating schedules.
After a glance upward, his eyes widened and he slapped his forehead.
I'm supposed to be in Namur soon. I hope I didn't startle you earlier. My uncle did mention there'd be a student staying here on the weekend, but it slipped my mind.
No, that's fine. It was nice finally meeting you, Hendrik.
Likewise.
I'll be sure to ask you if I have any other geology questions.
That's what I'm here for. I'll see you on Monday.
And we met the last person. Phew. Oh. Come on. Don't. You fell on your butt, woman! Why? Oh. Okay. I guess it doesn't really matter what we do. Because, well, whatever. We'll cave? Do they? No, they just both give you... I'll have to pay attention to see if it levels up something in particular. I think we should browse the internet. I guess I don't really have to volunteer either, although it does give me... We'll socialize there. And then we'll lab it up here. And then maybe volunteer there. And then cave. Socialize. Internet. Lab. Socialize. Internet. I meant to do cave. It doesn't really matter though. Maybe I'll volunteer and then... Maybe we'll email and then dance a couple of times and hopefully that'll be okay. Oh, chocolate hazelnut, you're worth the extra insulin. When I was done, I rolled the bread up and bit the end. My mouth glued shut as I chewed while the spread smeared my cheek. Glad I was eating breakfast alone. I was being sloppy.
Bonjour.
Huh? Someone lightly pecked me on one cheek. The person immediately pulled back and I hastily rubbed my face while he did the same. DeAndre, I was stuffing my face. At least warn me next time before you kiss me.
I could say the same.
What was with the kiss, anyway?
It's how we greet friends. Usually the cheek kissing goes a little smoother than this one.
He eyed my breakfast and snorted teasingly.
Cute, Mel.
Hey, I wasn't expecting anyone to arrive so soon. Did you drive here?
We took the train. It only stops here every half an hour, so you either arrive early or slightly late.
Before I could question the we, DeAndre tapped the side of his cheek.
You still have some...
You too.
Still? Did you dunk your face into...
I did not. Your timing was just atrocious. While we were both cleaning ourselves, I noticed Kyler observing us with a deadpan expression. He frowned in disgust and disappeared around the corner with his belongings. DeAndre rubbed his temples like he had an impending headache.
I don't think he likes me.
Something happened?
Well... Do you remember that rowdy night?
I went to bed early, so...
Well, a bunch of us started playing catch. I may or may not have nailed Kyler in the head with the ball.
That is what that whack was. Was he okay?
Yeah, he was fine if upset. I tried to apologize, but he wouldn't hear of it. Now he probably thought I was shamelessly flirting with you like some full-time playboy.
Oh, you aren't?
Part-time.
Kyler seems to be the type where first impressions are everything.
I agree. I didn't exactly start off on the right foot with him either.
Huh, so we're both in the same boat.
About the ball incident. You guys figure it out. I'm not doing that. Are you still gonna apologize?
I'll try. Not many opportunities to talk to this guy. Ugh.
Still, it was an accident. I wonder why he reacted like that.
I think because it could have damaged the device he wears.
Oh, that's a good point. I could see why he would overreact with that. Ah, that makes sense. Hope he'll forgive you now. A few other students trickled in, and I finished my breakfast before there were any more mishaps.
Anyway, where did you stay this weekend?
I furiously chewed my oversized portion, but DeAndre flashed me a patient, I'll wait smile. Coffee, and I simply tapped the table since I couldn't talk.
Here? How was it?
I survived. When a car pulled in, I knew Augustin and Sherry had arrived. I waved to them as they got out, although inwardly I wanted to whine to Augustin about the whole ghost thing. After Sherry and I greeted each other, she handed my journal back. Be sure to read the comments in the journal when you have time. It'll give you an idea of how you're performing. Thank you, I will. Also, since this is your second week here, you now have the option to pick lab work if you'd like. Oh, right. I'll notify Hendrik. He handles the Lab 101 here and can explain the procedures to you. Nice, it seems my options have opened up. As if I didn't know that already. There sure are a lot of stuffing tools here. I perked up as Hendrik tapped the whiteboard with his prosthetic fingers, his speech continuing in French. His lecture was occasionally interrupted with polite giggles or groans, and he would grin at their reactions. Hendrik loved to deliver puns in any language, I mused. Once the explanation wrapped up, people collected plastic bags, each with a sheet inside. Some barely contained any material, while others had huge bones encased in tinfoil. I grabbed a decently sized one with mostly smaller items and fished out the fiche. Is it fiche or fiche? Fiche. Okay. Fished out the fiche, along with a wrapped item. Is this your first time doing lab work? Yes. Sherry's gone over the procedures with a slide presentation, but it's different seeing it all up close. If you'd like, I can clarify a few things. I thought it'd be easier to do a little one-on-one instead of repeating myself in both languages and taking up more time. Really? Then I'm good. I think I got everything. Thanks for the help, Hendrik. Geen probleem. I'll mostly be helping out in the lab, working alongside the other students. Hendrik drifted away to answer questions from other students, while I gingerly unwrapped one of the items in the tinfoil. It was a tiny tooth, with only minimal dirt attached to the root. At least it was an easy one to work with. I dunked a toothbrush into the water and began to scrub it. I dried it off and set it on the cloth, then uncapped the ink bottle and neatly dipped the nib into it. Gently, gently. I had barely touched the tooth with the nib when a giant splotch of ink dispersed and penetrated the root. It now resembled a squished black spider. I cleaned the nib and scraped the blotch the best I could. It seemed to work, but it also scratched into the tooth. It's harder than it looks. I'm already missing the cave. Of course, this was where the real discoveries would take place, where everything was cataloged and identified for future examination. I would also be graded for my lab work, so it wasn't something I could avoid entirely. Time to see if I can finish this one at least. Except I was working in the cave that day. Whoops. Okay, so that's diligence. I never thought I'd struggle to figure out if something was bone or stone. I turned the thin brown piece in my hand while my thumb rubbed off some of the dirt attached to it. Luckily, it left an imprint in the soil so I could return it to its original context, but I did not want to measure something that would reveal to be worthless. I thought about asking Sherry, but I already pestered her with a million questions this morning, and she was helping the other students. Turning off my music, I glimpsed at Kyler. He was kneeling down and jotting something on his fiche, using one of the protruding rocks as an improvised table. He was completely absorbed in his work, though. But leave him alone this time. I doubt he'd appreciate it if I bothered him again. Maybe I should simply record it. I'd rather have them discover something worthless and toss it out in the lab than forever wonder if I throw away something valuable. It was then I felt a tap to my shoulder, jolting me out of my daze.
Are you having trouble?
You noticed? Yeah, I'm like, oh, you noticed?
You have been examining the same object for quite a while now. It's better to outright ask someone than waste time or make a mistake.
I would do it more often if someone was a little more approachable.
But since you did ask...
I'm stuck playing the bone or stone game. What do you think? He extended his arm and I placed the item into his outstretched palm. He held it up to the heat lamp behind us. The silent anticipation was agonizing, and I was surprised. Was Kyler stumped on it as well? Just when I was about to inquire, he moved his hand to his mouth and pressed the object against his tongue nonchalantly. What?
It's stone and not worth recording. You can toss it into the bucket.
I reluctantly held out my hand as he dropped the slightly damp stone into my possession. How much of it did you lick? I said ew last time. He's already mad that I, didn't ask for help. So, I'm assuming this is the correct answer with Kyler, but what about germs or viruses? I hope you're not going to get sick from that.
This is a very old layer. Any bacteria or viruses would be long gone by now. The dirt is sterile. I wouldn't recommend using it frequently, though. It's more of a last resort test.
That's pretty neat. Thanks for telling me. Okay. Well, it didn't go too bad. I'd like to know why I cannot succeed at interneting. I was braver this time. Instead of sitting at the end of the bench, I positioned myself right in the middle, hoping to mingle with other students. I eyed the carton of apple juice that was out of my reach. I did not want to stand up and reach over since that would seem rude. However, I wasn't sure if I could communicate clearly to the people beside me. It was worth a shot, though, and I did try to brush up on my French when I had the chance. Ask for it in French. Please, pronunciation, don't fail me now. I hesitantly extended my fingers toward the item. Excusez-moi. Pouvez-vous, s'il vous plaît, passer le jus de pomme? The girl clapped a hand to her mouth in shock, then excitedly gestured with one arm in the air. Quoi? Tout le monde! Elle parle français! Peux-tu répéter? Répéter! Repeat! I stammered out the line, but finished strongly. Moments later, everyone applauded. Merci. As the claps died down, I felt a little more welcome here. It was rather encouraging. But wasn't getting my juice any faster. Aw, thanks, Joan. It seemed my thoughts were heard, and the juice carton appeared beside my plate. I glanced up, and the redhead across from me smiled. Recognizing each other, we exchanged a grin. Merci beaucoup. You're welcome. Joan and I met already. I'm Melissa, and this is true this time. Chantal, sorry for the spotlight, but I thought a little cheering would help. It's fine. I appreciate it. I also like that we've been socializing with you two for like a week and a half, and we're only now asking what Chantal's name is. I poured my drink while Joan eyed me curiously. Chantal, she is from the States. Yep, California to be exact. Beaches, bikinis, movie stars, and all that jazz. To come all this way, you want to be an archaeologist as well? I'm still considering a few options, but I've been enjoying it here. It's incredible to be surrounded by all this history. What about you two? What degrees are you taking? Chantal translated for me, and Joan brightened as she raised her fingers close to her cheek and wriggled them. Music! I play flute. Neat. How do you say flute in French? Chantal chuckled loudly, but managed to relay the question to Joan, who giggled. La flute. Why am I not surprised? But isn't that nice? It helps with learning a language if many of the words are identical or similar. If all else fails, say the word in English. There's a chance we might understand. Are you monolingual? Well...
I know some Spanish.
I'm not sure if it counts, but solo hablo un poquito de español. Joan tilted her head, while Chantal leaned in ardently. ¿Hablas español? ¿Me puedes enseñar español? Tal vez. Where did you learn it? My parents speak it, and I was much more fluent growing up, but I've sort of gotten rusty. Are you learning Spanish? Chantal pouted between a spoonful of cereal sprinkled with cocoa powder. I'd like to, but Spanish class is conflicted with my other courses. I want to go to South America or the Caribbean, so I'd like to master both English and Spanish. We both glanced back at Joan, who patiently tried to follow along. Chantal quickly summed up our conversation, and Joan nodded. Chantal wants to dig underwater. I'm interested in underwater archaeology. Sadly, this elective is not what I'm looking for, but the choices were pretty limited. I guess the cave can get damp occasionally, if that counts. I admit underwater archaeology was not a field that I had given much thought to. Why underwater? Are you... Okay, we asked looking for Atlantis last time. How about searching for pirate ships and sunken treasure? Looking for pirate or trading ships? There was a lot of piracy in the Caribbean. Yes, I've always loved the whole buccaneer. Is it buccaneer? The whole buccaneer scene. I'd like to excavate something like Port Royal, the infamous Jamaican city that was partially submerged after an earthquake. There's already been multiple investigations at Port Royal, and it makes me anxious. I really want to start enjoying something amazing like that. I feel by the time I graduate, everything about Port Royal will be studied and then left alone and forgotten like Grotte de Spy. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. Archaeologists rediscovered Pompeii hundreds of years ago, and the excavations are still ongoing. These things take time, like Kallen, of course. I paused to let Chantal summarize our conversation again. Joan responded in a sentence so soft I couldn't catch it. What did she say? Joan says she's a super slow digger in Grotte de Kallen. I know no archaeology. Chantal helps. More like I reassure her I'll help, and then wonder if I should bother Mr. Dupont. I'm thankful for Mrs. Keller. She's very patient. And I guess there's Hendrik now too, right? He seems pretty approachable. He is, and he's definitely geologist-y. Chantal tilted her head toward the far end of the table. I could see him socializing with Sherry and Augustin, obviously playing catch-up. And he's beau, too. He's supervising the labs now. Maybe that won't be so boring this time around. Have you done them yet? Only recently. Sherry encouraged me to focus on the cave last week. The lab's not bad, but there's a lot to take in. I find it tedious. Joan, I'm to le laboratoire? Non. It is tedious? Boring? If you'd like, maybe the three of us could work in the lab together. That'd be fun. Sounds like a plan. Joan picked up her empty plate and I did the same. It was nice talking to you, Melissa. Nice talking to you. I'll see you both later. My grin didn't fade after we parted ways. It felt wonderful to branch out and introduce myself to more people. I finally made some female friends. Why did that take so long, anyway? Okay. So that's, I can't remember what... It starts with an R. It doesn't... Anyway, cave and lab do not up the two skills I'm trying to up. What kind of bone is this? A tooth? It was the size of the palm of my hand with wave-like ridges on the outside. Who should I ask? Sherry. Sherry, I have a question. Yes? What bone is this? It looks like a tooth, but... I handed it to her and she turned it over, examining it closely. Why, it's a tooth of a woolly rhinoceros! An upper molar, to be exact. How can you tell? Their molars have a very characteristic shape if you look at the ridge here. It's like a W. Right. You see this in horse teeth as well. It helps with sharing tough plant material. Still, you identified it so fast. Once you've worked with hundreds of them, it becomes second nature.
What are we looking at? Have we discovered something valuable?
Sherry turned and held up the tooth. Augustin barely glanced at it.
You've seen one silly Colodonta antiquitatis upper molar. You've seen them all.
At least I know for next time. Thanks, Sherry.
Sherry has become such an expert in identifying animal fauna, considering she started in forensics.
Forensics? Really? I know you teach it, but I didn't know that was your career, too. Yes. Although the aims may be different, the goal is to identify human remains. In forensic anthropology, you mainly deal with recovering modern remains in a legal context, while archaeology is broader and spans history. Interesting. How did you get into archaeology? I was called in to assist a colleague with a sacred burial ground. We identified the remains for historical purposes, and then reburied them again. Wow, I had no idea.
You could say she has literal skeletons in her closet.
True, most of the skeletons used in my classes are donations or being borrowed from those sites.
The rest are her previous lovers.
Augustin, you jest! That was my first husband. Melissa, you should resume cleaning now that we've identified the tooth. Right. Let's not delve too deep into that, shall we? Woo!
Did it?